I just have to commend you because I think you've written this incredible dimensional book about, as you say, the renaissance of public shaming in society and particularly online. And the beginning of the book starts with how you got to this journey, and it was, by something that we all do, although all don't admit, I think, of self-Googling, yes. Right? So you self-Googled and...
I self-Googled and discovered that there was another Jon Ronson on Twitter with my name and my face, but an entirely different personality to me. So the first tweet I saw, as I kind of looked in surprise at its timeline, was going home, got to get the recipe for a huge plate of mussel and guarana in a bap with mayonnaise, #yummy.
Okay.
So I was like, who are you? And anyway, this went on. I discovered it was the work of these three academics who, for some kind of intellectual reason, which I still don't entirely understand, had created this Jon Ronson spam bot. So I said, can you take down your spam bot? And they said, we prefer the term infomorph. So I said, well, look, if you won't take down your spam bot, by now I had a real tightness in my chest. Sure. So I met them, and they told me that they were annoyed with me because what right did I have to be the only Jon Ronson? And I said, but right. You're using my face. Mm-hmm. It kind of surprised me how much I cared about having my identity stolen, because it was being followed by people that I knew from real life and people who liked my books. And I thought, I've spent 47 years trying to work out what my identity is, and it's just been like taken away from me. And this was on a tiny scale. Of course, with you and with some of the other people in my book, it happened on an unbelievable scale.
Mm-hmm. Were you scared?
One of them said to me, I was really angry, much more so than I thought I would have been, and he said, one of them said something to me that just kind of brushed past me at the time. But later, when I started to really think about this subject harder, I realised this was a really important line. He said to me, the internet is not the real world. But that's a misconception that I think a lot of people have.
I think it's interesting, but I don't hear people talking about it very much anymore, but remember Second Life? And I think that was that sense of, we started to see people kind of not having your real life there or living out some other kind of a fantasy life, but then we also started to see how there were real life consequences to that.
Yeah.
People, I think, were even getting divorced from that, and of course there was real life consequences well before, as I certainly know.
Yeah.
So.
And there's a weird kind of dissonance going on, which is that we want to destroy Monica Lewinsky, but not feel bad about it. Yeah. So what we do is come up with some words to dehumanise the victim of the shaming.
And the other. It's a strange combination of Schadenfreude and othering people.
One thing I'd add to that is that, I think it's like on social media, we've set a stage for like constant high dramas. Mm-hmm. So like we either have to do something wonderful and heroic or something like we have to shame this terrible person. And, I sort of think that's not how we are as human beings. So Justine Sacco was the New York City PR woman with 170 Twitter followers who wrote, just as she was about to board a plane to Cape Town, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white. And then she got no replies, got on the plane, fell asleep, and then woke up. The first thing she saw was a text from somebody she hadn't spoken to since high school that said, I am so sorry to see what's happening to you.
I think on the one hand, what's challenging about social media is if I were going to make a joke, I would be aware of my audience.
Yeah.
But don't we also want to live in a world where people can have competing ideas and varying viewpoints on things? And I think that's where we're in such an important time about figuring out how are we going to create this social space where you can have different views and have different layers of humor and all sorts of other things.
Absolutely, and be kind of impudent and foolhardy and listen to each other's views and have debates rather than screaming people out. There was a line in your TED Talk that I thought was so wonderful, I wrote it down. Can I read it to you?
Yeah.
You said that people had forgotten with you that woman was dimensional and had a soul and was once unbroken. And I think this is really the problem on social media and in, you know, journalism to a large extent. Like, we like to pretend that people aren't dimensional. We like to pretend that, like, Justine Sacco's, you know, badly worded tweet is a clue to her inherent evil. But that's not true. We know that's not true about people, but we've tricked ourselves into believing that's true. We've tricked ourselves into believing you are that one moment. Right. Justine Sacco is that one moment. And until we get beyond that, we're really screwed.
You know, I've had people ask a lot, well, you know, how do we solve this problem? And kind of hoping that there's a 1, 2, 3 answer, which I don't think there is. I think that this is it's a multi-layered problem. I think that there are many threads to, you know, that kind of weaves the fabric of this problem in a sense of that it's people who are doing the shaming because they were themselves shamed. And actually, I don't know. I really want to make sure we talk about this because I thought this was if I can find it, the most powerful quote from your book, from James Gilligan. And he says that I have yet to see a serious act of violence that was not provoked by the experience of feeling shamed or humiliated, disrespected, and ridiculed. Yeah. And he was talking about the prison system. But I mean, I just felt like that so speaks to the whole of society in many ways.
Yeah, that all we can think to do is shame. Shame has become this kind of default position. Yeah, James Gilligan, so he was a psychiatrist, a Boston psychiatrist who ended up spending his life inside maximum security prisons. And he said that, and I think this is such a brilliant line, if people really want to think about how to solve violence, they should really think about James Gilligan's line instead of trying to say, oh, he's just a bleeding heart liberal. He said, all violence is an attempt to replace shame with self-esteem. Yeah. So you decided to start your own Twitter account. So why did you decide to do that, and how did it go?
Well, I think that there were several reasons to do it, and one was it was another step in kind of taking back my narrative and being. I think I also felt too that it seemed to, by not being on social media, it was a distance. It created a distance between what I was trying to talk about, even though I had experienced it and I still saw, you know, I've self-Googled before or seen things on Twitter, you know, that to kind of not be in the same social space as everybody else that I'm talking to, it felt. But it's been a wonderful experience. I think I've gotten to see in a closer way how positive upstanding can actually and impactful it can be. Mm-hmm. But it's also been challenging. I mean, I think most of my friends would probably tell you my humor is not on display on my Twitter feed, you know, that I haven't quite felt comfortable yet to fully be myself.
And also, I think the way that Twitter is set up is this kind of mutual approval machine, that you surround yourself with people who feel the same way you do. So you're just approving each other. It's like mutual grooming, as a friend of mine called it. And so if everybody in your circle is shaming Monica Lewinsky, not only is there no incentive to say, I don't think this is right, it's actually a little bit frightening to say, I don't think this is right.
That's what I think is actually so interesting about the concept of upstanding. And so in that sense of that, you know, I don't know how many negative comments you get, but I've had my fair share. And I can say, you know, it really actually makes a difference to not necessarily have somebody have to step in and kind of not break up a fight on the playground, but someone who kind of just posts something positive about you, or that, you know, you can tell is trying to counteract I don't know, it makes me feel better. Yeah. I don't know if it does for you too. Maybe I'm just a sap.
No, my God, it does. I read the saddest thing, somebody reviewing my book in England, a woman called Helen Lewis. She said when the whole Justine Sacco thing unfolded, she said, like, she went on Twitter and said, I think this woman's joke was misconstrued. And immediately she got a whole load of people saying to her, you're just a privileged bitch too. And she said, to my shame, I shut up. I didn't say anything.
We've lost context. You know, what's happened with the internet is that we lose context for a story, but mainly we lose context for a person. This is someone's daughter. This is someone's sister. You know, this is somebody who has a sense of humor that might be different than mine. This is someone who has a long range of life experiences which inform how they themselves view the world or how they articulate themselves. I don't know how we necessarily begin to do that. I don't know if that's an awakening of consciousness that has to happen in people, if that's a change of the way we operate on the internet. I don't know. Do you have I mean, did you from everything that you learned?
I mean, I like to think that as human beings we are empathetic people. Like our natural position in life is empathy and compassion and kindness. But every so often we just forget that. So we get kind of overwhelmed with the kind of excitement and hilarity. You know, it was hilarious to people that Justine Sacco was oblivious to her destruction. I did think to myself, we still got a long way to go, because I bet that some people who would give Monica Lewinsky a standing ovation would still tear apart Justine Sacco. It's like it's decided, because, you know, we are the ones with the power, so we have decided that consensual sex scandal isn't a big deal. I mean, we decided long ago.
I think it's still considered a big deal. I'm not sure I agree with you on that.
I think especially if you're a woman.
Right. I think particularly if you're a woman, but I think that I think probably some of the other people in the last few years who have been exposed that way would probably feel that they suffered at the hands of public stoning.
No, and in the end, actually, it turned out brilliantly, because your TED Talk came out the same week that my book is coming out.
I know, which was
and they mirror each other,
right.
Incredibly, and maybe there's a power to that, to these two things coming out at once, and maybe, I mean, I don't want to sound too grandiose or naive, but maybe in like months to come, people will notice that they're behaving differently on the internet because they saw, what this did to you, and they saw what it did to some of the people in my book, and they probably don't even, maybe it's just going to happen subconsciously, they don't even realise they've changed and become kinder, but maybe they will.